Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, first of all, because I know some people really do not like rambling on YouTube, and you're probably just here for the info. You don't really care that much about who I am or what I do or what I've been up to. So jump to the timestamp here below and we'll get into the goodness of this video and what you clicked on. And now I will indulge myself and tell you guys about what I've been up to. Honestly, I just haven't had any really good ideas to put out with YouTube. A big sort of ethos with YouTube is like, I only want to put stuff out that is actually going to contribute to people that follow me, people that are going to come across it are going to find some value in it, and something that you guys are going to enjoy in some way in terms of whether the info is helpful or it's funny or entertaining, beautiful scenes, whatever. So hasn't been really that much going on. The client work has started to pick up a little bit more on the marketing side of my business. On the photography side, I'm still not allowed to shoot in Melbourne. We just became the most lockdown city in the world, 270 days of lockdown, which is just awesome. On the flip side, I've been playing around with some gear. I'm shooting this on my new Sony 24mm f1.4 G Master, which I fucking love. Absolutely love this lens. It is definitely my favorite lens right now. And the second one I got, the Sony 35mm f1.8. Really love this lens. I have never shot on a 35mm before. I've got a 51.4, and for me, found the 51.4 covered most situations for portraiture. I really love the 35mm focal length just because it just feels like this is what you see. When I'm looking through a lens and I'm trying to compare it to like what my brain sees and my eyeballs see in real life, 24 is obviously fairly wide and I don't really get that field of view when I think about it. When I think about 50, it's probably a little bit too punched in and it's a little bit too narrow for it to be real life. But I know like the compression that you get with a 50 is what's most similar to, you know, what we see with our eyeballs. But the 35 f1.4 is something that I picked up and absolutely loving it. I nearly went the 35 f1.4, but from what I can see, the optical quality is almost as good as this, and it's like a third of the price. So I was just like, I'm gonna get the 1.8 because I'm not working at the moment, and absolutely love it. Love the form factor, love how tiny it is. This is my new like just run around and shoot stuff lens. It's just absolutely fucking awesome. Like, love this lens so much. It is so good. Obviously f.18, you get a nice blurry background. And for me, for the sort of stuff I do, f1.8 to f2 is probably better if I don't need the light, just because I do need a little bit more depth of field than what a f1.4 is offering. But I do enjoy the 24 that I'm shooting on very much. So that was a little gear chat that you might not have cared about, but niching down and what the value is in it. First of all, we're going to be talking about why you should niche down, especially if you're a beginner photographer or videographer. The benefits of it. I'm going to teach you how to pick a good niche, a strong niche within your city or industry. Then we're going to talk about some common concerns and feedback that I hear a lot from people when I'm telling them to niche down, or they're asking me about how they grow their business and why a lot of them aren't based in truth and it's more of the negative self-talk that we have. Okie dokie. Number one, how do we pick a niche, or how do we niche down? It's really just picking one industry that you want to focus on when you're starting out. Especially for beginners, this is a really valuable practice for you because it allows you to build up your confidence when you're shooting and really hone your skills in environments that don't really fluctuate that much. What that means is if you're starting out like I did and you're just doing food photography, you can experiment in environments that you're quite comfortable with. You know, once you've done 10 food shoots, you're gonna be quite confident shooting food photos and, you know, making little adjustments here and there to improve it and make your stuff better. But overall, those situations won't change that much. You've got a dish, you've got the same subject, and the environment might change, but generally you will start to learn what makes a food photo really good, and your photography and videography skill set will grow exponentially when you're focusing on one thing. But also the confidence that comes with being able to shoot something and being, you know, happy and comfortable shooting something is a huge benefit to you, being able to stretch yourself a little bit more every shoot and build up from there. What can happen if you're spread too thin across too many industries, say you're doing food one day and then fashion the next, you might have nailed your food shoot and you're really good at that, and then you go into fashion and you bomb that shoot, and all of a sudden you've got a confidence loss because you're like, maybe I'm not the photographer I thought I was. When realistically, they're just two very, very different fields, and it's really hard to make this hard switch if you're a beginner photographer from one genre to the other. This is probably not the most interesting thing, but it is very important to keep in mind as a content creator, is marketing yourself. If you are marketing yourself as a fashion photographer, a food photographer, a real estate photographer, like across so many industries, it's really hard for people to find you. If you are just, you know, your city's name, food photographer, it is way easier for people to find you online, and it is super, super simple for them to get in contact with you and look up your work. For instance, obviously my name's Ed. I am a photographer in Melbourne. Rather than saying Melbourne photographer, it is way easier people find me if they go Melbourne food photographer. If you love shooting food or fashion and you want to do that, you're way better off listing yourself as a fashion photographer insert city name, because business trying to find people to make content for them are not going to look up Melbourne photographer. They're going to look up Melbourne fashion photographer, London fashion photographer, Chicago fashion photographer. They're going to look up specific city names. They're going to look up the specific industry that they look in, plus photographer, plus city, for wherever they're based to find you. So it's going to make it a lot easier for people to find you, and also helps you lay the groundwork to establish yourself as a more of an authority within the industry. It's going to stop you from spreading yourself too thin and trying to juggle too many things at once. Get really, really good at one thing, and then you can start branching out. But there are lots of benefits to niching down. But from all my research when I started out as a photographer and videographer, I never really once heard people talk about how to pick a good niche and what a good niche consists of. For me, when I'm looking at an industry and if I want to know if I should be investing my time into it, is it a growth industry? Is there lots of new businesses in that industry? Are people moving towards it? And do they have a need for content? Does the industry in general use a lot of content? Do they do a lot of print work? Are they very active on social media companies in the industry in general? These are really good indicators for you that you're going to actually be able to get paid what you're worth and have reliable work. Let's say you've got an industry that really smashes out their social media, but it's actually a shrinking industry. There's not much growth in it. Every sort of business is old, established. They've got their photographers, they've got their videographers, they've got their social media teams. It's very hard for you to slot yourself in there because you're really just waiting for someone else to leave the industry before you can insert yourself into it. If you've got a growth industry, you can find new businesses and establish connections with people that are new to the industry. They're starting out, you're starting out. It's a really good collaboration, a really good partnership for you to have in these industries. So it's much easier to break into growth industries than it is to get into industries that are very well established and it's very competitive and there's not too much movement within the industry. And obviously, if the industry itself doesn't even utilize socials, for me in Melbourne, construction is work that I do, but I find it very difficult to get more work than I've currently got because they're a little bit old school. They don't really have social media, so they don't really see the value of what we do as much. So if you see that the industry itself doesn't have much social media in it at all, then I'd really wouldn't bother. So make sure the industry is growing and make sure they use a lot of content. You're either looking for print campaigns or social media. That's going to help you out. Let's address the biggest concern people have when they're discussing niching down. One, they don't want to be stuck in an industry. I think one of the most beautiful things about our job is that we can float from industry to industry, especially right now with social media. And the world we live in, the need for content has never been higher. So we can float from industry to industry. So I understand people's concern that if you are marketing yourself as a food photographer, that you're probably only going to get food work. That is not going to happen. I can guarantee that. A little bit of backstory for me. I just started out with food photography, cafes and restaurants. That's all I did for about a year. And then all of a sudden, all these other jobs started coming up. Marketing yourself online and social media is very powerful, but what's even more powerful is word of mouth. If your client is super, super happy with you and they love your work, they might have a mate who owns a business or their friend needs some family portraits or whatever, and they need a photographer. They're going to go, hey, I know like Ed's got awesome social media and I love who does his stuff. So I'm going to ask Ed who does it. And they're going to ask you if you can do this job. That is how I got into real estate. That is how I got into tourism. That's how I got into construction work. Everything led on from contacts that I made within the food industry of people knowing people, people already looking for a photographer and you just happen to bump into them while you're out in jobs. That concern of niching down is going to mean I'm just a food photographer or whatever it is not going to happen. Eventually you spread your wings a little bit. People are going to be very interested in your work. And as you can show a consistent quality of work and you hone your skills through niching down, people are going to be more confident to hire you in different industries. That's it. We're done. All right. We're finally back. Thank God. I literally have filmed this thing 5 times now. So this is 2 videos and there will be a follow-up in terms of like the most important thing I think when dealing with clients and one of the most overlooked things. And we'll go into some client horror stories from mine that I can look back and laugh at now. And they were my bad. It was nothing to do with the client. They were my bad. This was originally going to be 1 video and then it turned into 2. And now this is my 5th time shooting this video. I just had those days where like what was up here was just not coming down out my mouth. And I was just going like, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it. If you did get any value out of this, please hit that like button. Leave me a comment. Do you niche down? I want to know, whether you're a beginner or experienced. Let me know if you're someone that niches down and focuses on a certain niche and lets the other work come to them like I do. Maybe you're someone that likes rolling with it and you just want to pick up as much work as possible and work across as many industries. So let me know. I'd be really interested to hear, guys. And lastly, hit that subscribe button. It helps me out. But if you got no value out of this, you know exactly what I said. I appreciate your time anyway, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.